Come on. Oh, yay! Oh my God. Finally made it. Jeez. Okay, that was real hard work.
That's taken 25 minutes
of pain. We've been really struggling. We're not tech savvy, and the tech savvy boy is out cycling miles and miles.
And that whole web stream crap can go and YouTube it. Yeah, why you need to do all that, I do not know, but anyway.
Okay, we've got some people here anyway, so we're not on the thing that I made. We've had to just dump that because I don't know how to get it to work. We're crap. Sorry. So we're just gonna go with the flow and see what people want to unpack. So anyone in the turn the sound down,
yeah. Okay, yeah, right, thank you. Yes, boss. Anyway, right, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're still getting over the trauma of getting the thing to work.
We're a little bit flustered and stressed.
Like, don't mess with me, otherwise you're going out the window.
Yeah. The computer is nearly in the bin.
Right.
But we're here. We're finally here, and we're only 25 minutes late, so it's fine. And most of the countries coming in are like ages behind, so it's just the afternoon. So welcome everyone. Does anyone want to kick off with anything in particular? Oh, hey Shaya, welcome. So I had a message from someone on Instagram saying that they're having a real struggle either going into or accepting or having conflict and judgment towards their little space regression therapy, their feelings inside that. She didn't go too deeply, or they didn't go too deeply, but they are struggling a little bit with it, with the stigma and that discrimination and that bit of judgment that you can give yourself. So I thought maybe we could start there and try and make it a bit safe. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is that regression therapy in the widest form has such a wide spectrum of things that it goes from just a contracted kink space for adults who play in that way to something that needs therapy because it's so traumatizing to have touch that it re-stimulates archaic memory in the body called somatic memory, and it makes intimacy really hard because you can get flooding of cognitive memory, you can get flooding of body memory, and it can make touch really difficult. So in that spectrum there's lots of different people, and also there's a lot of people that aren't in trauma or getting over trauma or have it as kink. There's a lot of people in autism who have age sliding and who do the adulting but actually really relate to still being childlike and still feeling childlike and still being sort of attracted to that part of themselves playing and regressing and needing to get back to that space just to get over adulting during the day. So it's an active part of their soothing and nothing to do with sex or other. It's self and decompression of the outside world. So there's lots of people who come into this from lots of different angles, all of them relevant and all of them valid, and none of them should be stigmatized or judged in as if it's some kind of gross thing or that it's linked to something else. I think the problem is that there is such a fear response to everything paedophilic that it sort of spreads over everything else just in case, which makes everyone really fearful, and all this stigma comes up and there's this disgust reflex to anything that could even remind them of the fringe edge of something, and actually it's nothing to do with that. It's a totally different mechanism in the brain and the body. So gifting your rights to look into your body and soothe it through this portal that makes sense to the body that wants to be relaxed, or the trauma that wants soothing, or even the kink space, or the autistic body that needs to decompress at the end of the day. Whatever it is that it's coming from, it's all valid. And any judgment that comes from it is just from people that just don't understand. And ignorance is just a lack of education. So once we start putting things out there where people can digest it a bit easier and understand it more fully, they may be able to lose their stigma and think, oh, right, I realize where I'm getting in the way of trauma healing, or autistic adults being in the world in a way that makes sense to their atypical brain, or prevention. So I think if I can just give that that woman, that person who is struggling with giving herself permission to have this space, and feeling like she's judgmental on herself, and feeling discriminated and stigmatized by herself or by society, try and I've got a few YouTube videos in the therapy bubbles: child part work 1, 2 and 3, regression therapy, soothing the amygdala, trauma and the brain. All those sort of things touch on regression therapy just in general. So they might be a way for you to actually go through a process with yourself to find what your stigma is and how to educate it beyond what it would tell you, into, oh, well, that's just this. We put that down every time you hear it. And at first, it takes a while because it keeps coming back up, because it's a habitual thing that your body is telling you, and you've heard for so long out from the external environment of people that are scared or disgusted or in this knee-jerk reaction. So that habit needs 63 days to break a habit, but it needs 21 days to make another one, which is the different thing that we're going to say to ourselves, which is, this makes total sense. This isn't disgusting. This isn't something to judge. It isn't something to put into some kind of box over here and conflate with all sorts of things that are nothing to do with it. So we're just going to give it some space to unpack a little bit. So hopefully that is a beginning point for everyone to just think, okay, let me see where I'm beginning from, and see whether I can, share or see what we want to unpack today that can help anyone with what they're going through in either their dynamic, or their self, or their little space, or their adulting, or any kind of mental health thing. Just whatever, bring it on. How's that? Did that make sense?
Yeah.
This is my, what was it? Not adjudicator. What you call
moderator?
Them? Moderator. Yeah.
IT department.
Yeah. IT moderates, bringing in the support from the side.
Oh, yeah.
And any questions? Papa's very open to talking and being in this space. So let's see where we go.
Yeah, I can't help you with live stream though.
You can't what?
Help with live stream.
No, we struggled with that. We're like,
nearly going then, wasn't it?
Yeah. When we're trying to get something done like that we're both really crap at, like putting up the tens, or we're trying to like do something that we're really putting up shelves, we call it divorce territory, where we're like, we just accept that we're going to be a little bit grouchy while we're doing it, and it's not personal, and this is just how we are. And then we're just getting stressed because we're trying to do this thing that both of us aren't very good at. And then we're like, okay, that was done. Sorry about the little whoopsie and the whatever that we've done in the meantime, trying to get it done. And then we're able to sort of move on, knowing that like we're allowed to just be a bit stressed trying to do stuff that we're not good at, and we're allowed to not take it personally from each other. But it does take actually a good 20 to 40 minutes when you've actually got triggered or in real stress, fear, for your body to go back to normal. So slight irritation can take 5 or so minutes. So we should be quite settled back now. No. So love them. Yay, my new glasses. I can actually see properly now. It's a revelation. The woman said that I'll put them on and feel really bong-eyed because I've been wearing such a wrong set of prescription, and what the eyes are so different from each other. But I put them on and it was just like, la, I can read things, I can see things, I can see the detail. It's lovely. So I'm really pleased with them. Papa chose them. And now we're matching. So what does this say? Like, how can I respect my little with friends my age? So it depends. It depends on whether they're aware of little space and their little friend, or they're able to go, oh, I get this in you. I'm not, but that's fine. You can be like that around me. In fact, I find that really endearing, and I would love to play with you in that space, or help you play in that space, or go on an outing or whatever. But if they're an actual little, then it's like that gradual process of building up a friendship that you can say, you know, do you want to do this, or shall we do that, or can we sort of gradually make a friendship that we can get together and do little space together. And I think in both ways they would need good communication, so that you're adjusting your expectations and you're creating some boundaries and some understanding over the needs and any like worries or conflicts either person has, so that you go into it with a transparency and you're sort of letting them know. So with friends, I would assume it would be a platonic space, and it's asking them either if they'd like to join you in it, like I'm working on this child part work and it's about portaling back to, you know, going back to your child part and inviting them in and doing silly things and like making up stuff, and would you like to play hide and seek, or do you want to go on an outing to the theme park but do all the little rides and have a picnic and go on the pedalos, or you know, would you like to come do some craft, and we'll do some little space craft and like finger painting and you know, kinetic sand or whatever, so that they might have the opportunity to go, oh yeah, that sounds like fun, just like messing around and just pretending that you're not an adult for a day. That could be cool. Or it could be that you have someone who is in a caregiver role that wouldn't be comfortable in regressing, but would be really comfortable in helping you regress, in taking you on an outing. Like, you don't do regressing, but like you're Papa's really good at playing and being silly, and like is a safe person, so he has all those skills to just bring out. So he's quite good at just being like an adult with a child part, whereas I need to regress to get there. There's like a block, and there's sort of stuff in the way for my body to just let go into that space. But I think a lot of adults who are caregivers, you know, who are able to sort of understand that space and gift it to someone who's had a void of that, or had it stolen from them or ruined, that they could find it really joyful to be part of. Like you actually enjoy just the stuff of it now, don't you? It's fun to think of like ways to go and be silly and be little and just, you know, have someone look after you and regress into that space. So depends. See what's around you and what's available, and be transparent and open, and I would meet it and greet it and sort of work towards a space where you're letting them know about this therapeutic space and regression therapy in general, and the amygdala and how it helps soothe archaic wounds and reset the nervous system, so that they understand it in a physiological way, in a neurological way, in a psychological way, so that it doesn't feel weird and kinky and like some kind of strange thing that you're subvertively getting them into. It's actually just a really wholesome and loving space that's very therapeutic. and can help a great deal of people soothe or reset or heal from wounds. So let me know if that answered in any way that question, or whether we want to go deeper in any way to it. And anyone else who wants to chime in on anything. It's really lovely to see a few people here. Oh, good. So just keep working on it, and be brave. Just gradually share it, that, you know, you've got that you're if you're able to sort of say, I didn't have a good childhood, and it really gets in the way of me being an adult, because you wouldn't believe how many structures of self are based on a good childhood. Body. Having a body is really hard when you didn't have a childhood, because you're much more likely to depersonalize or dissociate, so that you don't have a body, or you could become a completely different person, or a set of people that share the day out, because it's so difficult to remain configured. And so child part is also about rest, being able to say, I'm allowed to stop, I'm a person. And if you weren't given those permissions, you find it hard to stop. You find it hard to go, I've earned the right to stop. You don't just have the right to stop because you feel tired, or you feel thirsty, you need a wee, or you just had enough, or you're bored, or whatever. You have to sort of earn that right, or prove it in some way. So child part work is absolutely vital to becoming a configured adult, because otherwise you don't become an adult, you become a robot. And then you end up in breakdown psychologically, neurologically, or physiologically. And that is obviously really fucking hard. So we want to avoid that in as many ways as possible. So it's if someone just doesn't get it, it's probably because they're privileged enough to have had a childhood, and they don't get the void and the need, and that, you know, it is possible to backfill that space. It is possible to teleport backwards and reset that space, so that your body works better, so that you stay more in contact with your body. You don't jump out of it, you don't depersonalize or dissociate. You're more able to stay in the here and now and look after it and respond to it. So it makes it easier to be a person as an adult. If you've had a childhood, and I'm thirsty, I'm chatting. If you've had a childhood, you'll have a body as an adult, and you'll be allowed to have hobbies and play and be silly and joke, and, you know, be daddy as well as dad, or mummy as well as mum, or friend. You know, you're able to navigate all these roles with more authenticity and link to a self, because you've had the rights to be a body for your whole childhood, and you've then become that person in safety into adulthood. But if you didn't have that safety, you don't become your Mohican of self and all these other structures that give you skills to navigate adult life. You become a swollen amygdala, fight or flight, flop, freeze, or friend. So you get super good at the fear response, at the alert response, at being super like, I know everything and I'm aware of everything, but you're not good at relaxing or switching off or sleeping or noticing your body, because you're too busy noticing everything else. Your body, when you're in alert, shuts down. It shuts off your stomach, it shuts off your bladder, or it will evacuate. So all of a sudden you just suddenly feel like you're going to wake yourself, because your fear response has come on, and it just wants you to get ready to run. So we don't need all this wee in our bladder. We don't need to have all our blood digesting our food. We need to get all our blood to our heart and our muscles and get fucking running, because it's scared. So, you know, we've got to stay in our body and realize that to be able to do that, we have to visit backwards if we have a missing child part. If you haven't got a child part, if you didn't have a childhood, if you had an ACE-core, an adverse childhood experiencing in your childhood, particularly in infancy, before 6 and under, then it's very likely that you need to do this work just to be a body, a human being who then becomes a person in some authentic way. Otherwise, you're just struggling to stay authentic in these robotic roles that you sacrifice yourself on, because it's easy to, because I can't remember when the last time I needed a wee. Oh wait, there, my bladder's really sore now and it's just switched on. So that ability to depersonalize, to sacrifice body, to do role in authentically, it, you know, is not good for self. It's not even good for the role. You'd think being a sacrificial mama would be really great for your children, but it isn't. It just teaches them to be robots, to not have feelings, to not have needs, to not have requirements, to not see you as a person, to see you as some kind of slave or sacrificial role to the system. And that if you don't give that upbringing that says, we are part of a community, this is our community of family, and this is our home, and this is our household, and this is our life that we run, and we are all integral parts of that, and we equally respect each other to bring, you know, our skills to the table. From little, you know, we encouraged our children to have a voice in their you know, their opinions and their perspective. And quite often me and Simon are sort of the opposite ends of thinking and feeling, and it's really nice to go, look, me and Daddy are here and here, and there's like a whole thing in between, where are you? And it shows them that there is no right or wrong. We're just respecting everyone from their perspective, and what does it feel for you? I've gone off on a tangent, and I'm like talking about families now, and I don't even know why, so I can't remember the point I was making. Can you? No, I'm just gasbagging now.
My memory's not that long.
To remember the beginning of my sentence.
Yeah.
So anyone got any other questions or want to take the tangent in another way?
Someone's just said, put a sock in it.
Zip it, Bungle. Yeah. Have you got a drink? Oh, you've got a drink. Has everyone got some drinks and some water? Water check. Get your fluids.
For £1.
You what?
For £1.
Yeah. Merch. Get it from your tap, and you can PayPal us. So, hey, welcome. We loved your note. Oh my gosh, when you watch it, I literally had to take a minute to get over reading your just such a thoughtful note. I just needed to like let that bit of emotion out, have a cuddle, and then get on with opening the box. It was absolutely amazing. I'm just talking about Bubba's unboxing.
Yeah, don't worry, you haven't missed anything, any latecomers.
We're just getting started. There's a video of the unboxing on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. Absolutely glorious.
Everyone else is still waiting for that other one to start, aren't they?
I know. We had
when's it going to start? Get really excited.
I hope there's no one there, because that would be, I'm sure they would have got this alert. I'm so excited to watch it after this. So yeah, we're just here unpacking Little Space. Any judgments, internal structures in the way, any blocks, anyone feeling stigma or discrimination, anyone wants to bring up any topic that needs unpacking, we're totally open and welcome to content suggestions and signposting to a particular avenue. It's really warm up here, isn't it?
Jump in the window.
Could do if you mind. We're just going to get some air in. We're opening a window.
It's because it's so steamy outside.
It was meant to storm today, but it's sort of passed over, and now it's just muggy. Hey, Andre. Hey, Andre. Any content or suggestions? Any questions? Anything you want unpacking? We've done a little bit on the portaling of the amygdala space and being able to regress into a real soothing because of that space. And and any blocks in the way of that, any judgments that people can have. We've unpacked that a little bit, but anyone wants to go over it again, we can do it in a different way. I'm the queen of saying it over and over again in lots of different ways, so everyone has got the portion that they need. So just you literally
they're talking about it, you're talking about it.
You literally have to tell me I get it, and then I'll literally stop repeating myself in different ways to show you the same thing. But I think that's because I'm dyslexic, and quite often I'm the last one that gets it. I'm like really thinking long and hard afterwards, just like, what did that mean? What were they going on about? What was that thing? And might have to do a few Google searches to like, oh, I get it. And sometimes like I'll laugh ages after the joke because it's finally like, oh, I found the funny. I get it now. So I think that's why I over-explain. It's probably my own need. Dyslexics in the house.
You're still laughing over that joke from Police Academy.
Yeah. When he says, "Give me your best shot. Go on, go as hard as you can." And this little short guy is going to punch this big cop, this big guy who thinks he's really hard, and instead he just gives him a massive slap round the face, which he wasn't expecting. It was so funny. Just thinking about it makes me laugh. Oh,
right. So like 30 years ago.
Yeah, I have that as well. Takes me ages to get the jokes. I'm the same. I always tend to overthink everything I'm saying. I love Police Academy. I love Police Academy.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
We were laughing at, like, every time he wants to make me laugh, he just brings that up and it makes me laugh. Yeah, dyslexia is hard because or autism, anything that makes you atypical gets in the way of you like just getting it. Quite often I'm in the social thing thinking I don't understand what's going banter. That like I've stopped trying banter because I just get myself into trouble because I just don't get it. I feel like I'm doing the banter, but then I'm not, or I'm hurting someone's feelings, or I'm watching the banter thinking, oh gosh, this feels really sore on someone. I don't like this. So social etiquettes and things, like when you're dyslexic or atypical in some way, you're seeing it from a different perspective. You're just going into the space from a different felt space. It's how you feel the thing, and a lot of people don't understand empathy. They can only see something from their own view, and they think nothing else exists but their own view, or everything else that exists beyond their own view is wrong. Where we want to get to a point where everyone has their unique view, and it's so unique that there's no point in making little sections, because even those in that section who would think, oh, we're all the same, would then go, oh wait, we are actually different, but that's fine. And we want to just like spread that a bit wider, where it's not right or wrong, it's just different. I view and feel things differently because I'm dyslexic and I'm empathic and I'm this, that and the other, as Simon does, or my son does, from a different, or my daughter, or anyone from an autistic perspective. And I found in Little Space, with people that I'm working with, there's a lot of people who because of their age sliding, or their feeling relating to that little space inside themselves, they go an adult, but then this is the real, true, authentic space of being. They go do that work, but it's really hard work, and then they come home and here they are, and then all the conflict is around, what does this mean? And the projection from society that it means something really disgusting when actually it doesn't. But they then add this secondary thing called paedophilic obsessive compulsive disorder, which, despite the title, it is nothing to do with paedophilia. It's not a sexual attraction to children. It's sort of like such a fear of it or a question of it, or something that's happened that makes you think, oh, is this it? And it creates this tailspin in yourself and this real undoing of your ability to be self, or your safety in self, because you get projected upon that, oh, because I still like to wear my nappies, because it took a lot of autistic people take a long time to get to feel their body properly so that they can get beyond incontinence wear. And because of that elongated relationship with it and the safety of it and the soothing of it, they have a relationship with it. But then society would then project onto that, because of their atypical perspective and relationship to diaper or nappy, that means this. And then because their atypical perspective and the way their brain might then, instead of go through a felt sense of, well, I've never been sexually attracted to a child, so that doesn't mean that's wrong, their body wouldn't be connected, so their brain would go, oh, is that how it starts? And they could start a whole obsessive compulsive thinking disorder. And even people that just have obsessive compulsive disorder can get POCD. You don't even have to have trauma or autism. You just can have obsessive compulsive disorder that one day this pops up and then it won't let it go, and all of a sudden you're undoing yourself in the worst possible way, to the point of suicidality. Especially if lots of people are bearing down and you're making this judgment that you're weird and gross and this means this, because they don't understand it, because they're ignorant of the facts. They're hey Robert, hey Rue, hey everyone. So it sort of creates this internal dialogue that would then say, oh, well, then this must mean that. And because you're disconnected from your body, either because of trauma and depersonalization, or ASD, where you don't have so much felt sense, you can depersonalize easily and become robot, that you wouldn't necessarily be able to rely on what your body would tell you. You would then think, oh, well, then that is a question. And it can create such an undoing of self, because it's not talked about as a condition of obsessive compulsive disorder, or a condition of autism, or a condition of trauma survival. POCD is just not mentioned really anywhere, and I think a lot of people mistake it and might harm themselves or commit suicide because of it, because they don't understand, oh, it's not that, it's not pedophilia and minor attraction and I'm going to go and offend. It doesn't mean any of these things. It actually is this. Hey Dexy, say hello to everyone.
Yeah, turn around.
It actually is this completely a separate condition, nothing to do with it other than
Dexter.
It's around the same fear cycle. One is the attraction and arousal to children that you're born with, and generally events around puberty, and the other is usually a thought process that leads to the undoing of self and the obsessive compulsive thinking of self in a way that doesn't make sense. And because it doesn't make sense, you never finish the cycle, so you're forever going back in with another thing that you found, because, oh, what about this and what about that? And I've worked a lot in my charity. In fact, the main people that we get through the charity is trauma survivors with autopedophilia, where they have in the spectrum of either fear response to touch, which makes flashbacking, or a conflict in arousal to their body neurosomatic memory of trauma and their adult sex life, or survivors or autistic people with POCD, and just really fighting their idea of self with this, does this mean this or does that mean that? And they bring a whole list of things that does this mean, and we just have to sort of bring it back to the body and just ask the question. It's really simple. Since puberty and your body's natural hormones bringing on arousal and your brain becoming connected with its arousal zones, do you become aroused by prepubescent children? And if the answer is no, it's never happened, then It's not going to happen. You're not going to be a minor attracted person. That doesn't mean that you couldn't ever offend, because a lot of offences are done by people who aren't attracted to children at all. It's called situational offending, and you know, it could be as egotistical as, you know, a dad is raising his children on his own and he feels entitled, to all sorts of other things that aren't anything to do with I'm aroused by children. It's just a situational, either conflict with self that ended in a behaviour upon a child instead of any other behaviour that would be negligent or detrimental, like, you know, drinking or going into a fight or stealing or whatever. I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, I'm getting really deep in it. Hey there, let's read some of these. And my little is not here right now, hoping she's going to get on the way. She's really wanting to see. I'm guessing if she misses, we'll watch it again later. If it's not too boring. I couldn't agree more, Andre. I have suffered from bedwetting my whole life, and as a child I wasn't ashamed, but I am now. I love going into little space because it takes me back to the time when it was okay. This is a really major thing, because it's not okay for neurotypicals to atypical shame. To put onto someone that they haven't become an adult in the right way is just sort of generalizing what adulting looks like. And all of them are crying into their fucking cereals 3 times a week anyway, so they're not bloody successful at adulting. Like, everyone is, you know, either failing or on some kind of medication to help them try and survive adulting. So no one's doing good at it. And if anyone is judging someone else on the things that they have held on to that allow them to soothe beyond adult space, or to feel safe within adult space, to go out. There's been a lot of stuff on the internet where people are like, you're involving me in your kink, and they're, you know, you're not getting my consent for that. And actually, kink and involving someone in your kink is a very specific thing. Living your life with the things that you need, or the things that you find soothing or endearing, isn't involving people in kink. Someone can use nappies or diapers in a sexual way, but also in a way that just either is an autistic soothing and safety way, or because they have incontinence, and so they've just made the best of the fact that they've got an incontinence and made it part of their kink space. Because why wouldn't you? You're going to stop having sex because you're incontinent, or you're just going to bring it in because let's not worry about that stuff. Let's put some stuff down and let's not worry about it. Let's get some cute nappies and it's fine. And as a person who is going to end up in a wheelchair and incontinent because of a spinal injury and degeneration in my spine and my nerves and all these different things, for me to work towards a space that feels accepting and fun and part of my little space, and unjudged and being allowed to be there, I think is a much better destination than me feeling absolutely like, oh my God, I hate the fact that I'm incontinent and I hate living like this and I hate myself and I'm disgusting and I'm horrible. The coming to terms with self is accommodating where you are now. And if it is, putting up a boundary to all those privileged neurotypicals who didn't have to gradually get used to having a body and being in connection with it, and still having struggled with that, well, bully for you, but I'm in this body and I have the right to accommodate my life to how it makes sense to me. And if you want to wear a nappy to keep yourself safe in adulting, and then in private space use it in any kind of kinky way, then that's absolutely your right to do. You're not involving anyone in that. You're just making the right choices for yourself. So give yourself that freedom and wash away the shame. Let me just have a little read of what's happened. Unfortunately, I have to go, but I'm excited to finish watching the live stream tonight. I look forward to watching another in the future. Bye bye for now. See you later. Lots of love. Catch up later. You make everything make sense. Good. I'm glad. Is there anything that wants to be unpacked any further with anyone? Because giving it this space to make sense is part of the process. When you're sitting with people infiltrating their sense on the space, you'll get further and further away from making your sense. And actually, we want to remind those people that, oh, I can respect the way that you've made sense of the world and yourself and being an adult. And I just want the same thing back. These are my choices that make sense to me and how I was born and what I've had to deal with and how I've had to look after myself. So we can all respect each other in this day and age, hopefully, and make those right choices. So I hope, Andre, you can start giving yourself more permission to make those choices that make sense to you. And you can start making the boundaries around anyone that would put a disgust reflex into it or a shame response. That's their work to do. That's who they are. So as long as you can stay internally located, you won't ever have to carry around their shame or their stigma or their discrimination, because usually it's about them. The ones that shout the loudest about the stuff are usually the ones in absolute turmoil because it's in them and they're in absolute conflict with it. You know, a lot of men go to war and then they come back and get rid of that absolute masculine persona because actually they're a trans female, or they're gay, or there's something that's the absolute, opposite of this war thing. And it's a real conflict of self that they just had to go through to come to their knowledge of self and get to that point where they can actually be authenticated. So even the ones that are shouting loudest are usually in the hardest battle themselves. And they just need inviting into the safe space, really. Am I missing stuff? Have you ever dealt with bedwetting? I really like your necklace. Thank you. There's one from Lollipops, Sandwich and Lollipops channel. She makes a few things. And this I got from the flea market today. And this was out of my Bubba box. And it's like a little mood thing and it spins around. And this is my, it's like a necklace with like a little fidget spinner on it. But my papa bought me it because he said it's sort of like when you're feeling unsafe, don't be more than this far away from me. And just to keep, I don't know, it's a real cute thing. So it's got engraved and stuff. So anyway, thanks. So have I ever bedwetted? I have had bouts of experiences of bedwetting, usually around real trauma when I'm having such bad nightmares that my body detaches from itself and it will usually evacuate because it's so scared. So I have them in that way, but not generally. The only time when I have to use incontinence wear is when my spine is playing up. If I've done too much, it like swells and then it impinges on the nerves, and then I can get a bit like I can't trust my bladder. So then it's not that I need the incontinence wear, it's that I feel safer if we're going to be going out, or if I'm going to be doing something where I'm not going to be near a toilet and I can't trust myself, that I'd rather have something on that makes me feel safe so I don't have to think about it. But once I get to that point, I'm not going to be ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of it now. Like, I don't need nappies to regress. And also I find them a bit sweaty, so I'm not rushing to that. But there are some cute ones on the market and stuff. But the main thing for me is that I've had 2 children and we used disposable nappies, and I already feel like I've used my quota of landfill, so I can't make that choice right now, like feeling good about it, because of like the planet is dying and I don't want to add stress to it because I'm wearing nappies I don't need right now. Them. No,
I'm joking,
Papa. So yeah, I'm holding off as long as I can, but when I can't, that'll be the end of it, and then I'll do what I need to do, and If people take offense to that, then that's their work to do. So yeah, love seeing you and your papa interact, and glad your daughter is accepting of you, My little's fam would never understand her. It's a real hard thing. Any tips for her on how to deal with that in her mind so she can get back into little space? That great Tog as well. We watch them. They're great. Oh, they're great too as well. We watch them. Lollipops and Sandwich, I get it. So let me just answer those little things before I get to Ruse. I'm coming for you. Robert. So yeah, my daughter and my son, he doesn't feature a lot because he's a private person, and like he's too busy cycling hundreds of miles for charity and doing all sorts of business stuff. He's a big businessman. He's too busy for it, and he always has been ever since he was little. He came out the womb ready to do stuff, didn't want cuddles because I'm doing this, Mum, I'll give you a cuddle tomorrow, and tomorrow never came. So we just got used to the fact that, hey, he doesn't do cuddles, it's fine. So both of my children are really accepting because I transparently spoke to them about it and said, listen, I'm having all these seizures, I'm doing EMDR therapy, but also this other thing helps too, this regression therapy. And it's about witnessing my child part that didn't have a childhood, that had a whole load of trauma instead, and that's kind of stuck there, infiltrating all my adult life, my body, my stress response, my amygdala triggers, my PTSD. All these things are happening because I've got this stuck bit of trauma that needs soothing. And it doesn't matter how many qualifications I get and how many books I read and how many things I do to go, oh yeah, that's a really good thing to learn, I'll do that. It's not going to my body where it's stuck in a way that makes sense to it. That's like an adult's way of going, oh, let me educate you into soothing. When a child is like, I don't know, if you're going to read me a story, at least read me one that I'm going to enjoy. So it doesn't make sense to the part that's traumatized and stuck. So I explained it in a way that made sense. Me and Daddy are going to be looking after my child part. It's going to look a little bit weird sometimes because I'm going to be investing in it and probably carrying a bear around that helps my child part regress and come to the forefront. And Daddy, I mean, we have always been really like loving and affectionate, and there's always been this slight little space anyway, so they're very used to us being very doting and romantic and like silly and loving with each other. So it's not like, oh my God, where's all this come from? It's just another dimension of it. They're always like, oh God, you know, go away, parents. So it's just another bit of that which they're pretty comfortable with because they get it as a therapeutic notion. I don't like to say my space isn't sexual because that puts on a judgment to people who have sexual little space, which I'm not judgmental about. I don't want anyone else to be judgmental about. But it makes it easier to navigate in a home space. But if there is a sexual space in it, what I would suggest is that you separate them and have them have totally different arenas to be cared for, so that this one can have the day-to-day feeling of like, I don't have to have people's consent for this. This is just me caring for my body in a way that makes sense to it and the trauma it's carrying. And it's cute and it's lovely and it's wholesome and it's a caregiving, loving, romantic thing. And then this private space is contracted with another adult that understands it, that keeps it safe, that allows it to have understanding and knowledge of what its needs are, because kinky little space needs a lot of contracting, especially if you have trauma, especially if you have dissociation, because you could have dissociative littles that you don't even know about that could then become traumatized. So in all that space you need to be really, really super kind and careful, and probably have a counseling space to help you navigate that. But all of that is good work. We would much rather in your body have a soothed little that is allowed to feel sexual and not shamed about the fact that their body responded to nice touch, and be able to have sex again without being in absolute war with the thoughts that come because of PTSD. That's a really great space to be. So I want to make it safe for everyone, that they're able to sort of meet it and greet it wherever they see it from, and if they see it from both parts, be able to see it as two parts and witness it differently, so that you are able to witness it on a day-to-day, instead of thinking I've got to put this away until we're next kinky with it, because then you're not witnessing the wholesome end, the little side that doesn't want that, and maybe they might even be totally separate. It might be the child part that experienced the abuse and the sexual shame, that needs to work through that, and this other child part that didn't get the childhood, doesn't want anything to do with it, like go and do that somewhere else. So understanding what you need to gain from this space and what your body has inside it that could be triggered is a really important thing to allowing this to having this be a therapeutic thing, rather than it going wrong in some way, which it can. And when that happens, the best thing to do is do a debrief and say, look, let's have a look at what went wrong. Let's have a look at what was triggered. Let's have a look at how we can make it safe. Let's see where we failed, because that's learning. And as long as you're doing it in a safe space, that no one is getting demonized, we're all allowed to be humans that are trying our absolute best, that they didn't quite work it out that way. And we can try again if we haven't damaged it in so much a way that we don't ever want to do it again. So for your little, what I would say is, if you have a family that just cannot and will not get it, they're so fear response, disgust response, stigma response, they just cannot, will not get it, then you just have to boundary that, so that you're able to spend time with them in an authentic way that says, this is all you're getting of me, this is the part that you get of me, and the more I live like that, the less time I want to spend with you, and I will adjust my energies to my needs, because if I can't be my authentic space, then I'm only going to see you when it's really necessary at those times, like weddings and funerals, and visit at Christmas or whatever, and whatever else you do that you contract as your space to give to your family. But they don't have to have your authentic you. You can make that space elsewhere without them, and you can gradually introduce it to them in a way that they can digest. So it's not about just upchucking it all over them, so they go, oh God, get away with all that grossness. Why did you upchuck all over my space? You can just serve them in little aperitifs, and just, oh, here's a lollipop to suck on. Oh, I've made you just this tiny little portion of this. Chow down. And then leave it for a bit so they can just digest it, and then bring the next bit. So you're gradually letting them know that you have a childlike space, and you have a difficulty in accessing it. So you have to sort of use props and tools and therapies and regression triggers, positive triggers, to help that space. And these are the things that you're learning from it, and these are the things that you're implanting in your body, and it's really good for resetting your amygdala and your nervous system. And give them the science of the facts so that they can understand what it is that you're doing, so that they get it as a neurological, psychological, physiological space that is really interesting, clever, and useful. So, Rue, I feel confusion about age regression and DDLG. I know they're different, but there seems to be a lot of animosity between the two. I know. I'm really not sure where I fit in, if it even matters. I hope that's not a controversial topic, though it often seems to be, but I'd appreciate your thoughts on this. Absolutely. So what people have a trouble doing is holding the gates open for the full spectrum of what it looks like. Sorry, Daniel. I'm just like whacking him in the face.
I'm just gonna
keep it off.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was nodding off then.
Yeah, outside of the velvet rope.
What I was listening.
So back in the day.
Sorry for that. Go on. That was. We're not making light on your question.
No, you're not, darling. I don't feel it that way, of course. Let me just remind myself what I was saying. Oh, DGL, yeah. So the full spectrum, and that includes so many different things that you could filter from: trauma, autism, kink, some kind of adult trauma that then dissociated your body, that you're having to go back to this space. All sorts of things can trigger it and be the reason that you're going into, that we have to respect. So that's the first thing. This looks so many different ways. Why are you trying to divide it all? Why can't we just let it be a thing that people approach in the way that makes sense to them? So then we go down a level into how people feature it. And it goes from a 24/7 sort of, me and Papa will locate my child parts several times a day just to make sure I've still got a body, because he knows how much I dissociate and become a robot. And so it's become such a loving part of our relationship that it's a 24/7 thing. And if it ever configures and I don't have it anymore, I think we both really miss it. But a lot of people have it as a space to go to, or in fact a kink space to go to. So being allowed to separate it into its parts allows you to then visit them more wholly, so that they're getting all the needs they want, instead of diluting it into this other thing that makes sense to everyone else's version of it. And there could be several versions inside yourself. I know within my little space, there is an older space, which is Friday's child, and there is a much younger baby space, which is Dolly. But also there's a sexual shame space in the autopedophilia and the POCD. I haven't had a POCD about, oh, actually, the last one was when we looked after our godchildren, and changing the nappy gave me all these flashbacks to how I would feel about changing my own children's nappies. It was so painful. Like, I would physically feel like pain trying to do it, and like trying not to look and trying not to feel, and like, oh, it'd be so painful. That then when I was nappy changing my goddaughter, all of that stuff was flooding back, that I would just start crying every time I did it, and she'd be like, it's not that bad, like, I know it smells, but like, get a grip. And I'd be like, it's fine, don't worry about it, trying to get this nappy done. And I had to just say to the parents and my husband that I just can't do this. It really triggers a really painful space in me, and I remember it from our children, and it kicks off all these intrusive thoughts around my childhood. And because it links to this thing, it starts this POCD where I'm undoing my knowledge of self into, oh, why are you being weird about changing nappies? It must be this, when of course it's not. It's my brain telling me this about itself, because that's the ingrained mechanism at the time. Now I don't feel that way about myself. If it ever came up, I would think, oh, look what's getting triggered, I need to look after that. And when it happened with my godchildren, I just let them know I can't do the nappy changes. It's really affecting my PTSD, and I don't want to freak this little baby out, because I'm crying when I'm nappy changing her. It's too painful for me. So there's enough people in the house to not worry about that. So staying with your body and its own place allows you to stay safe in it. So I'm still working on sexual shame, on my little space, the child part that had the abuse, the 0 to 6 year old of my memory body, the somatics in my body that actually went through it, holds still a lot of sexual shame towards it. I think that's why I still get those intrusive PTSD, intrusive thinking, sometimes in intimacy or around content or a film or something, because of that wound. So giving it its space and separating out, so each part is actively being met how it needs to, and like giving them the rights to be separated out. We're going to do this work, let's do all the work in the ways that make sense to each part. Let's not just whitewash the lot with some generic paint that like none of them even like. So we're going to choose what makes sense to each part. So with the regression and the DDLG, to me, even the DDLG isn't a full term, because some people aren't sexual in DDLG. They just like the aesthetic. They like the dominant submissive part of it. And there is, because of that nurturing and that safe space, they would go into sex in that way, because this is where their body gets to the point where it feels relaxed enough and safe enough to then feel aroused, but then they would go either into an adult arousal space or a child play arousal space. But either way, it's in their contracted adult relationship, so it makes total sense to them and deserves no judgment from anyone else. So if you're having struggles, Rue, with your own confusion, your own judgment, your own stigma that you might hold towards your own needs, just try separating them out and meeting them step by step, just gradually, just having them in the room, writing down some things, not even doing them. And discussion doesn't mean action. It just means, well, let's get to know it. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it feels like. Let's see what it doesn't feel like. Let's know what it isn't, you know, and then all the things we know that it isn't are really good things to know. So that gets you more able to be free in finding out what it actually is and all the parts it might have, so that they're all looked after. Thank you. That makes great sense to me, Robert. Thank you. Family here, I'll be back. Bye bye, Robert. See you in the next one. Glad it made sense. So, Rue, does that make sense to you? That was really helpful. Brilliant. So is there anything else that it's triggered, or it wants to unpack further, or that it's saying, well, what about this? Has it led on to another question, or does that feel like, oh, no, I know what to do with that now. I know how to start feeling with it and meeting it? Or is there anyone else that's sort of opened up a different question for? And we're kind of coming towards the end of what we're going to do today anyway. So just let me know if there's any final thoughts or final questions that we might want to unpack. I'm sometimes sexual in little space and sometimes I'm not. Exactly. And really it's about contracting that. So if there is a ambiguity to it, I think I do know what to do with that now. How to explain it to my partner, do they mean? How to explain it to my partner, I think you mean. So being able to know what each part needs and being able to explain it to someone else is just a question of you having the knowledge yourself. So it may well be that you just go on a journey with it yourself first and you separate it out. So if you have a caregiver or some space for yourself, that you can make a little space that you can go into it, that you can hear when it's calling. Oh, I really want my little space, or I miss it, or oh, that has just made me want to go there and soothe, or oh, I feel really angry or upset, or what triggers you wanting and needing it. Oh, these are the things that have made me want and need or miss it. And then ask it, what does it want in there in that space that can help it feel that way, that can positively trigger those emotions and those regressions, so that you can portal into that space and reach the perspective of those needs, instead of looking on it as an adult in some kind of shameful, judgmental way. You can actually leave all those overthinkings behind and get into the space and actually meet it in a way that makes sense to it. So knowing it yourself, and it may be that knowing it in its non-sexual way and understanding it and what its needs are, and maybe what you're replacing from childhood, or you're redoing from childhood, or that you're healing from childhood, or whatever it is that it needs, or that it might be an autistic space for decompression, and you might need it daily from 6 till 7, or from the moment you get in, or they just need to understand it, so that you understand it well in this rhetoric. And then you look at it from this space, this other space that says, I also get sexual gratification from it. And you look at it in a way that says, is there any shame and guilt there? So is this me permanently re-traumatizing myself because of the neurosomatics I have from surviving trauma? So if every time I have that thought happens during intimacy, or when you're touching yourself, that you then add a shame to it. It may be that you're in a shame judgmental cycle that then blocks your ability to even have that arousal or that right to it. And then you're in a conflict of self. So it may be that you need to do the first work, which is removing your stigma of your own survival condition and saying, I survived in innocence, however that looks. However that looks. If I ended up actively attracted to children, which means I don't have to do anything about that. I have to look after how I was left from trauma. If I was left with something of an arousal for myself in child space, that's not a judgment to have on self and create a shame cycle and some kind of rape culture around. That is a necessary, you need to meet that in a space of understanding and removing the stigma, because surviving is innocent. So if someone has survived by depersonalization and dissociation, or they've survived by becoming a robot and separating from their life and disauthenticating their roles and just plodding along, or someone else has come to a space where they're in this absolute conflict because every time they're touched they have these flashbacks. All of those things are shame cycles and something that's just survival. And so you have to sort of first meet that. Why am I ashamed of it? What judgment am I bringing on from the outside world? And that I need to keep forgiving myself for taking up and absorbing all of that hate, but keep putting it down and boundarying it so that it doesn't go into my body and I'm not carrying it around. But then underneath that, then meet it, then actively go there just privately and have, arouse yourself and go into the arousal space and see what it looks like and see whether there is shame there, or whether there is an arousal to the shame. There might even be that actually you're a little bit ashamed that you find this arousing and you find the shame arousing. Oh, me. When all of that kind of makes sense to the body that had to live with it. It's much easier for your body to live with something that it finds slightly arousing, that is able to sit in its body as, oh, that wasn't so bad. So that is a clever mechanism. And it doesn't just switch off in adulthood. It stays there. When you are infiltrated as an infant, the survival mechanisms that are made in the brain last. So you've got to live with them forever. So giving them their permission and stop being disgusted by them, and then visiting them in a way that isn't shameful, that isn't judgmental, then allows them to come into a space where you can actively meet their needs. It's not this, it's this. This is what I need. I don't need to share it. I just want you to not feel ashamed of it. Or I would like to share it, but only in this way. Or if they just spoke these couple of words, it could just bring it back to this safe space of sharing rather than this traumatic space of flashbacking. So you actively replace the memory with a nicer, kinder, loving dynamic that feels very similar because you've laid it in the same space, this child part space. So instead of having this awful thing happen, you have this nice thing happen, which to me is therapeutic process. Oh, don't do that. So I'm missing some. So because sometimes I engage in sexual little space and I find it, I feel anxious in the middle of it. So something happens during the sexual space that you then feel anxious. It triggers something for you. And for that, there may be a trigger happening. Something might have happened that is creating some kind of, instead of we're doing this play and we're visiting this space in a therapeutic way, it's now alerting me, it's alerting my system, it's triggered something, and now I'm in a different space. And really all that is about is just staying with the body, because that's part of the soothing. It's part being allowed to, oh look, I'm getting triggered. Now let's adjust what we're doing to this space, respond to this space, leave that space behind because it's fine, and look after what it's triggered. And that's part of the therapy. You're going backwards to heal something that's stuck. And so occasionally you're going to tread on its toes, or you're going to do something that's like, oh, I didn't like that, so that if you bring it into a safe space where we're doing these things so that we can find these things and make them safe, then it's not a scared, oh, what am I doing? And I'm like somehow not playing the game, or now I've ruined it. You've got to give it more permission than that, to say that we're not playing a game, we're going through a process and we're doing a therapeutic space that could change at any minute, and we have to adjust to it moment by moment so that it remains safe. And consenting is moment by moment. So if the environment changes, then everyone has to adjust to it. Otherwise, you're not in that consensual space anymore. You're overriding it. So, or my pattern, I think she means partner, or my partner think I mean things in a sexual way, but I don't, and I have trouble explaining it's not. So they're thinking your little space. I wonder if there is a confusion happening because there's two parts to it and you don't quite know the boundaries of each. So it might be that you have to have certain sets of words for each space so that your partner can navigate it, because if it's all too intermingly, how can they? They're always going to be slightly getting it wrong because they don't understand well enough. So you need to make the structure around the two spaces so that they're very different, they're very separate. And it may be that you wear something that is a visual thing that says we're in this space now, or you have a code word, or a trigger word, or some kind of positive trigger for saying this is what we're doing now, we're leaving that behind. And if I'm ever coming from here, from the non-sexual space, it's not for you to invite into sexual space, it's for me to go there. So if they just understand that boundary, that when I'm in little space, non-kinky, if we're going to play in this space, then we're contracting in the way that it looks. But all other times, it's nothing to do with it. So any other time, it doesn't matter what I'm doing or what you think that means, you remain in the space that we are here, that's over there. And if the little comes into that space of safety going, I'm now getting aroused, they will lead you into where it needs to go. But you don't ever lead a child part out of a little space into an adult space, because that would be triggering, it could be detrimental to the whole process, and you could ruin all the safety. So I really would separate them out and make the little the one that walks towards, and the other space, if there is a sexual space to it, totally separate, that's contracted, that has its own separate words and its own key trick points that show, oh, this is what we're doing now, and you actually contract it. You say, we're going to do this tonight, so that your partner can navigate it a bit more easily. But always just keep going back and forth and allowing it to have the communication, and you'll get there. Hey, welcome back, Robert. People are saying hi to each other. Hey, everyone. So happy to see you. Hi, Microraptor. Welcome. So let's read this. Microraptor. I think the shame, at least sometimes, come from the association with children, but there's, of course, no children involved. It's adults enjoying themselves. Exactly. So the shame comes from people conflating it with this totally other separate thing. And the way that I like to explain it is that two adults contracting this space are enjoying adult bodies. The adult liking their little one in little space isn't because they've got a little body, it's because they're doing cute stuff and they're in this romantic thing and they're in this dominant submissive space that feels safe and arousing, and it feels like it's this contracting fun play that's getting bigger and bigger in a way of life type lifestyle thing. And in that space, the adult creating that space with the other adult likes adult stuff. The other adult that's in the child space wants to be the child. So neither of them are then going to take that space and think, I want to replace it with an actual child, because neither of them want that. It's a total opposite of what they want. The adult wants this adult that can go into this caregiving, loving, wholesome space where they can have this affection and this caregiving, and maybe even the sexual space, because it's a play and it's a therapeutic space that feels fun. But that's two adults, and there's no children's bodies there. And the child part that's in that dynamic isn't wanting to go and do something to children. They're wanting to be the child. They're wanting to enact that loving space, that intimacy, and that caregiver little dominant submissive space that makes sense to them. So it's so not the same. It just doesn't even make sense to put them in the same basket. But I can see why everyone keeps getting a little bit jumpy, because if so many people tell you, it's this, you will think, oh, is it? When actually it's not. They just don't understand the psychological terms of autopedophilia, and that can then lead on to pedophilic obsessive compulsive disorder. But neither of them are minor attractions. So it's hard to keep people out of their fear response, basically, when everyone is always so scared. I know a trans woman who used Little Space as a way to have the kind of childhood she wishes she had. Exactly. It is never too late to have a happy childhood. And if you didn't have one in the first instance, then go back and fucking make another one. You deserve it. It's so easy to do. And anyone that doesn't get him, fuck them. I don't need you to get it. Oh, so I'm so pleased for you that you had a childhood and you don't need to get it. But you don't have to destroy my right to try and replace my void. You know, they don't have any right to steal that from you. And if you have a way of making some sunshine in your life, you go ahead and do it. You just got to make a little bit of a thicker skin that keeps flicking off all the crap from outside. Sorry, my writing is bad. I mix letters because I have dyslexia. Me too. And I really can't write partner, write too much letter in it. Yeah, I'm the same. I had loads of letters, or I mix them around. Thank you very much for your help. Fantastic. I'm glad it was a help. The problem is, for me, being led out of Little Space causes, it makes me feel unsafe. So are you talking about, Fluttershy, that you're in a dynamic where your Little Space is drawn into an adult space that mostly you don't want because they're initiating it? Or is it that you're in Little Space and they're over it now, can I have my adult back? And they're trying to get you back into adult space so that they can be with their adult partner again. Oh, yeah. Which one, though? So was it that he's leading you into sexual space? Lead to sexual space. Okay, so this is just a contracting. It's a boundary thing, and your partner just needs to understand it, and they are failing at the boundaries, which is a real unsafe thing, and I can see why you're feeling unsafe. They need to understand that Little Space is not for them to encourage anywhere. It's for them to create safe boundary around. Now, if you leave that Little Space, you as the little leave that space into a sexual side, that is your dynamic to do. It's not for the adult, the big, the caregiver, the dominant to do that out of Little Space. If you're contracting in a sexual Little Space, and that might well be it, because you're contracting this BDSM kink space, so the adult would be telling you what to do and doing all the things they want to with you, if that's what you're contracting. But even in that, you would have the rights to contract. This is my needs in this kink space, and this is how I want it done, and these are the things I don't want you to do, and these are the things that I'm finding unsafe. So even in that sex space, you would want it to be much more safe. But out of the sex space, you need the boundary that separates it. And he should never encourage you over it, pick you up and take you over it, or come invade into that with this thing he's bringing in from the other space. It must remain separate to stay safe, I feel. Otherwise it can get intermingled and you can get triggered. And also they can start doing things that, you know, we really don't want, that actually could undermine your therapeutic space, that could undermine your whole ability to go there. It could become it could be traumatized again. So now you've got two traumatized child spaces. So you've got to be real. And something I like, sometimes I like it, but sometimes I feel stressed out. But I don't feel on something to say. I don't feel able to say no because I feel scared to. Okay, well, that's another thing entirely. The way that I think about it is that if you're having sexual relationships, which is an adult space, then you have to be adult enough to talk about it. If you're going beyond that into kink space, sexual adult kink space, then you have to be even better at talking about it. Otherwise, neither of you can ever be safe. And that's because of both of you. Neither of you are contracting, neither of you are communicating enough and talking about the boundaries, the code words, the hard no's, the yeses, the maybes, and all of the interweave between that. It took us months to contract my little space. I mean, we took it real gentle, and it took a lot of letter writing and talking over, and I would find little videos that would say, this is the sort of thing, and we'd do things like the first bath time. We laugh about it now, because it wasn't a baby's bath time, which is what I needed. It was, I've run you a lovely bath, have a lovely soak, which is sort of too adult, you know. And so once you're able to go, thank you for that try, this is my feedback in a loving way, they can go, oh yeah, I get that, okay, I left you to drown in the bath, okay, I get that, right, next time we'll do this. And you can gradually make it in a way that works out. But if you're with someone that doesn't respect your consent, that doesn't respect your needs or your wishes or your arousal or your safety, then that is an entirely different topic. That's a, you know, are you safe enough to leave? Are you not safe to leave? Are you there because of, you know, some kind of feeling of having this dutiful stay or something? And that really is self-esteem and the ability to give yourself permission to move on from someone who's not respecting you or not wanting to do what your needs are. You just see how you're feeling about that. You always have the right to say no, exactly, Macroraptor, and it's essential. If you can't say no, then you shouldn't be playing. Like, that's a real, if you can't say no, do not go into kink. End of. If you can't say no, don't be having sexual relationships, because that's where you get hurt. Your ability to have your voice and say no, or have your movement to say no, if you find voice so hard, that's your self-esteem and your rights to safety. And if you're not, if you have even struggle doing that, then there's a real need for you to find someone that helps you to get to that space. You don't know how to. It's a hard one, because if you haven't learned how to say no, how do you learn how to say no? And really it's back to that 21-day, 63-day habit making and breaking. And it might be that you write no on your hand, so you remind yourself that you're meant to be saying this word, not just about sex or little space, just in general, because I don't want to, or I don't feel it, or I've had enough, or I'm bored, or no thanks, I'm full. Whatever it is that the no needs to be around, you need to practice it more, because if you haven't got it in your sexual space, you probably haven't got it in your life in general. So we're going to come to the end now, because I've been gassing on like for so long, but I would say, yeah, you don't say it in general. So that is your problem here. I think you need to go right back to square one and say, as a human being, Fluttershy, why don't I have human rights? Why don't I have the right to safety? Why do I not know my boundaries? And if I do know my boundaries, just let people walk all over them. And start finding your self-esteem and your ability to become a person. If anyone's struggling with those sort of things, I have written a book called How I Became a Person, which takes you through the structure of becoming self and then authenticating your life and your roles and taking it into your structure of self and your whole life. And it shows my life as a case study, so you can see the project of it happening to someone else, so you might be able to relate it to self better. If anyone wants to go on a journey of self and they want to buy the book, which funds the charity, then it's on Kindle, or you can email me and I can send you a paperback with postage cost. Or if you can't afford it, you can get an e-copy for free. Just email me and I will send you a copy. I give that shit for free. So if you want to get and turn up for some process Fluttershy, which I really would recommend, if you can't say no, that's base level human stuff. So you're not a human body, let alone a person, if you can't say no. So that I would really urge you to get right on that and like really find your rights and your pride and your power. I will try and read your book. I think it might help. Thank you very much. Okay, so either email me or DM me if you want me to send you a free copy, or go on the Kindle and buy it, or DM me or email me if you want to buy a paperback copy, because sometimes people find that easier, especially dyslexic, so that you can highlight or fold down the page, or you can relate to different parts. Okay, so anyone else who wants that, just let me know as well. Lots of hugs, you can do this, yay. No wasn't an answer when I was a child. Yeah, exactly. This is historic and archaic memory, and your body never learned to be allowed to say no. So you have to teach it now. You have to be your own guardian, and you have to tell yourself, just because they didn't gift that to me in my upbringing, shame on them. Now I will backfill and I will do that work. And you can, I believe in you. Every person has the ability to evolve. Okay. Robert, she needs to remember the little is not a slave. The little is in charge in little space. The caregiver should respect that. Yeah. Yeah. If you haven't got a caregiver, if you've got a caretaker, then you just need to bin, because they're just trying to make this about them, and they're trying to make it some kind of thing that suits their needs, and they're trying to bend it round to their needs, because if you're going to do this, and I might as well get something out of it, which just does so many bad things to what you're trying to do with the space. I would just stop it entirely, because it's not a safe thing to do with this partner if that's how they're misusing the space and misusing your vulnerability. But yes, definitely let me know if you want me to send that to you, or find it on Kindle. Okay, I'm going to say bye-bye for now, everyone. Thank you so much for turning up. And we'll be doing it in a month again if everyone wants it. This is really good. So anyone who wants to send me an email, DM, or comment down below for any content, topics, anywhere you want us to take it, then just let us know and we'll take it from here. Let me just read these last few things. You prefer paper? Can I have your email address? Yes. I will link it when it comes up. I'll link it in the thing below, but it's autonomycounselling@outlook.com. So autonomycounselling@outlook.com. Thank you so much. Do this again. Yay. Okay, brilliant. Bye everyone. Bye. It's a great live. Thank you so much. Is there a Discord? We don't have a Discord. If someone would like to make a Discord, fantastic, go ahead. Oh, someone's message is held for review. What does that mean? Or autonomycounselling@outlook.com. Rue, that is correct. Show. Sorry, that's the one that needed thingy. Yes, that is the one. So email me and I can send you stuff, or you can email me your address and we can send you a paperback copy wherever you are in the world. Yay! Thank you so much. Bye bye for now. Thanks so much for staying there.
You're welcome.
Okay, I love you. Bye.